You and your friends ever want to play D&D but can't because no one can maintain a schedule? Yeah, mine either. Me and my friends can't do a schedule. But that's why they made Baldur's Gate 3. Every summer, to get that D&D fix, I reboot up Baldur's Gate 3. I have played through this game. I think I'm on my 4th run right now. Currently this summer, we're doing honor mode. It's not going good. But every time I play Baldur's Gate, I can't just play. I need to make a character. The little rat in my hat tells me I need to make a new one. But let me tell you, out of the multiple Baldur's Gate runs I have favorites. 2 favorites, in fact. They're so much my favorites that while these 2 had different runs of Baldur's Gate, I have combined them into one story because I wanted doomed siblings. And also, as another gimmick of this, because I can't just draw my characters, there has to be something. They're going in tarot cards. I picked cards that represent their stories or their personalities, and I thought it'd be a nice way to kind of give you a full picture of them. I'd like to preface before getting into the characters and their backstories. Cerulean is a tiefling bard that hails from Baldur's Gate. They're a very average person, and by average I mean they haven't had a lot of struggles. They left their family to go to Baldur's Gate and achieve their dream of being like a huge bard that makes awe-inspiring music, but they haven't really been inspired yet to make that grand piece. Like, they're chasing this beautiful big piece, and most of their struggles is trying to find an affordable price of somewhere to rent a room each night. One night after their performance, though, at some smaller tavern, nothing big like the elf song, they're walking home to wherever they might be renting out a place at, and they get picked up. The Nautiloid goes, "You're coming with me," and thus starts their whole journey of Baldur's Gate. Cerulean then goes through the motions of, you know, getting off the Nautiloid, wanting to help the druids, like Grove and the tieflings and everything. And while doing all of this, they somehow find themselves as the lead of the companions. This is because they're the only emotionally stable person and the one who has like some of the better moral code. They're an average person. Everyone has some sort of thing they've been done wrong by, whether that be gods or devils or just an authority figure. Cerulean's like, alright, so nothing really bad has happened to me, so all of you have this baggage that is leading you to really bad choices. What if I just go at the front of the party and do the negotiating? So because of all that, they do end up being the leader. They're also very much like the therapy friend of everyone being like, here are my problems, please fix me, you're the most normal person here. And Cerulean's like, another one? How did you all end up like this? Cerulean is the picturesque, trusted adult in this, even though I do think they'd be on the younger side with Lae'zel. Lae'zel, I think, is supposed to be somewhere in her early 20s, mid-20s, and I think Cerulean is also down at that level of age. Cerulean's leadership kind of ends at battling. They're a bard that's been performing in taverns. How should they know how to battle? They get into a battle and they go, oh, I can play a very beautiful song that'll hopefully put everyone to sleep and it'll be fine. So because of this, they don't really become a leader in battle, they kind of become a support, carrying on more of like the healing spells or sleep, carrying more of those spells with them. The leader that does happen to be lead of battling is Cardinal, which is the second character of this video. We'll get more into them later. But those two end up being the co-leaders of this ragtag group. And Cerulean does not like Cardinal being in charge of the battling at first either. Cardinal is the dark urge for this run. Cardinal's very bloodthirsty, and that puts Cerulean off a lot. They're very cautious around Cardinal. Cerulean does put on this really big mask in front of the group of being this over-charismatic, over-joyful kind of person. Occasionally it slips, like after a long day of battling or a long day of entertaining everyone, they just kind of quietly sit and stare off into the distance or get short with people. But due to them having this huge mask in front of people and not letting their companions know them really deeply, they're really susceptible to manipulation. And oh my god, would you look at that, there's a manipulator! The Emperor. all of your companions, when they see the Emperor, they all kind of go, hey, this dream visitor, I think is what they first call the Emperor, because the Emperor disguises himself to manipulate you in the beginning. But when the companions see the dream visitor, none of them trust them. All of them have dealt with shady people before, and all of them kind of flag the dream visitor as being shady and wanting something from you. But Cerulean sees it and goes, oh my god, someone wants to help me? You're saying someone will take the burden off of my shoulder and will help me? That sounds beautiful. Please help me. I also think Cerulean feels really inadequate compared to the rest of the group. Everyone was some sort of Archmage, Knight, Soldier on the Battlefield, Blade of Frontiers. Everyone has some sort of big title that they used to have. Cerulean does not. They're just a bard, and they don't really know how to fight. Like, at some point, I'd like to think Cerulean picks up being a swords bard and gets sword trained by Will or anyone else who's proficient in swords. They just don't feel strong enough, and so when someone comes up to them and goes, hey, you eat my worms, they'll make you more powerful. You won't die on the battlefield if you eat my worms. Cerulean's just kind of like, alright, who am I to judge? Maybe the worms are fine. So yeah, Cerulean becomes the worm eater of the group. But yes, Cerulean fully trusts the Emperor. They're so scared, and they don't feel like they can talk to anyone in the group about feeling scared. Cerulean's arc goes from being this really good person and really charismatic and compassionate and everything to being this very scared and even more pent-up person. I think by the end of their travels, they're not talking to the whole group. I think Cerulean's probably only talking to maybe Astarion and no one else, because Astarion is one of the companions that's like, yeah, we could eat worms, it'll make us more powerful. I'm also scared. I don't want to go back to the situation I was in. So I think those two would keep close, and everyone else would kind of be off-put by Cerulean keep eating the worms. I think a lot of the camp wants to help them, though. Especially Cardinal, and we'll get into that. I think Cardinal, Karlach, and Shadowheart, those people who were also close to Cerulean, do want to help. They just aren't sure how to do it. By the end of the story, around the time where you get the Orphic Hammer, I think the companions would really be split in two about how to keep going, because Lae'zel wants that Orphic Hammer, and Cardinal wants the Orphic Hammer. I think Cardinal really hates the Emperor, and so half the group really wants that hammer to not have to do with the Emperor anymore. And then you've got the head of the team, who everyone does trust, they're just a little worried about, constantly telling the group, no, let's not get the hammer. In the end, I think they do get the Orphic Hammer, and Cerulean does something of stealing it. Maybe they get Astarion to steal it, but they end up with the Orphic Hammer. And at the end, they have to decide if they'll actually listen to their friends or listen to the Emperor, which I'd like to think they listen to their friends and they get the Orphic Hammer. I'll say in my playthrough, Cerulean was the first Baldur's Gate run I had. I didn't know the Orphic Hammer was a solution. I thought you had to go with the Emperor. I was like, dang, I don't know how to get this, get the Yankee Prince out of his prison, so I guess we're going with the Emperor. Canonically speaking, in Baldur's Gate Truthing, they did not do that. But in this story, they do listen to their friends, come to their senses, and free Orpheus. Though I think they have to be really strong-armed into doing so. I think it might take a little fighting, and Cerulean's not winning a fight against anyone in this camp, let's be honest. So I think it takes a little lovingly beating them up to get them to do the right thing. Thus, cue the nice and happy ending. Now that we've gotten the very long-winded background of Cerulean over, let's actually get into the tarot card a little bit. So the card I went for them is the Fool. It's not counted as the first card in the tarot deck, it's actually counted as 0. The very first, it's about beginnings and everything, which I thought was very perfect for them. The card upright represents innocence. As the Fool goes on a new, optimistic journey, the Fool represents taking new risks, in that you don't know what's ahead of you, but you go at it with joy, as the Fool's not looking towards the danger that's behind them or anything. They're looking up and optimistic. This is Cerulean at the very beginning of their journey. That is very much who they are. They're like, alright, I'm in this very scary place, but look at all these friends I have. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're accomplishing. Surely this won't end badly. Reversed, the fool literally means you're acting like a fool, not taking responsibility for your actions, not looking at the danger that are ahead, and you need to be aware of what's happening with you. The reverse is more going towards the second half of Cerulean's story, where they start going down a really bad and illithid path, and they're just not being cautious about the steps they take. And then very briefly, let's get into a bit of the art about this. Cerulean's here playing their lute as they look behind them and are singing some sort of beautiful song, but underneath them is a very pit of despair. I made them look very tentacly as to represent the very illithid stuff that's happening with their own backstory. Their horns were one of my favorite details. I made their horns more based off of deer antlers. In my eyes, deers are very innocent animals. They're very passive, but they do end up being a very deadly creature because once a deer gets in a car's headlights, they do not move. And Cerulean is very much a deer in headlights when things happen. They just don't move and wait for someone else to save them. So I went with very deer-looking horns, and I also thought it was super cute. I thought about adding more deer details, like giving them some sort of patterning on their face, but I just didn't really love how it looked. But I did give them freckles to kind of go with the spotted deer's back. For the sky background, I didn't want to leave it super blank, but I also wasn't sure of what to do. My original thought when I was sketching this in my sketchbook was to put the silhouette of Baldurs Gate behind them, like the city. But Baldurs Gate, to me, doesn't really have a very iconic skyline. So I didn't think it'd be iconic enough to really be worth putting in there. But what I thought was iconic enough is that Baldurs Gate 3 has little symbols for each class. And so I took the bard symbol and put it behind them, as being a bard is really important to who they are and their character. So I still thought it really fit. Then the border of the card, I put 2 of the 3 netherstones at the top left and right, representing part of the journey they're going on. The other netherstone will be in the second half of the drawing.
Despair does us no good. Let us look forward and push on.
With all that finished up, here's the end result of the card. I low-key struggled hard with this card. If you're wondering why this video is coming out later than my schedule has been, this card really made me struggle. I do like how it ended up, it's just not exactly what I had imagined, but I'm still really pleased with it. If you don't choose those as the character you play as, then they join you as your companion. All the characters follow that rule but one, the Dark Urge. Now, the Dark Urge is a spawn of Baal. As the Dark Urge, you have the urge to end others and just bring more bloodshed throughout the land. The Dark Urge and the other Dead 2 were on their way to ruling the Absolute when Orin, the Dark Urge's sister, ends up killing them off. And then the Dark Urge goes through a million other really tragic things until they end up losing their memory and eventually end up on the Nautiloid ship. Cardinal is this story's Dark Urge. Now, if you notice the names Cardinal and Cerulean, my Baldurs Gate characters have a theme of all being sea colors. So that's just a fun fact for you all. I imagine Cerulean and Shadowheart escape the Nautiloid shift, and they're off going on the adventure, picking up other companions, and then they're trying to get to this druid's camp they keep hearing about. Then they come across this drow. That drow's Cardinal, and they're just surrounded by bodies on the ground of whatever enemies they had come across, and they are just drenched in red. Cardinal sees Cerulean, Shadowheart, and the other companions and immediately goes in heavy with, "Hey, who are you? Why were you on this ship? Who am I and what you do to me?" And then immediately passes out. All of the strength leaves them. Any aura they might have had 2 seconds ago, gone. Shadowheart heals Cardinal, and when he comes to, Cerulean and Shadowheart kind of go, "Hey, here's what's happening. We aren't a part of the Illithids. Join us and you might live." So Cardinal very begrudgingly joins the team. I'm sure at the beginning Cardinal wants to leave the team, but when they find out the artifact that Shadowheart has is the reason they aren't becoming a Mind Flayer yet, they do decide to permanently stick with this team. He's much more of a solo act. I imagine before he was taken from Baldur's Gate, he was a sorcerer assassin, and his brain's just very wired to do things alone. Also, yeah, getting into that, he is a sorcerer, but a wild magic sorcerer. At some point in the drawing, you'll see me add squiggles to his left side of his face and a bit of his arm. Those are his, wild magic manifestations. Whenever his wild magic does act up, the more his body is covered in those swirls. I think his wild magic is even more volatile because he's repressing the dark urge. Somehow it's just messing up his magic and causing wild magic to become even more wild. Now, digging into repressing the dark urge, yeah, Cardinal does not like the dark thoughts. Cardinal does not enjoy thinking that everything needs to go and that the world needs to be surrounded in blood. That's not really his vibe. He just kind of wants to get through the adventure. Meeting Cardinal at first, he's a very standoffish and silent person, not really wanting to get to know the crew, which is the complete opposite of Cerulean. I think the silence and everything does get to Cerulean when they want to be friends and the therapist person for the group. Cardinal does not want to open up, and even if they did want to open up, they can't even share a whole lot because they can't remember a whole lot. But Cerulean keeps thinking, gosh, if I only knew how to help you, we could be better teammates and get this adventure done with easier. But Cardinal will never say anything until it's too late. Take Alfira. Cardinal doesn't say anything when he's like, feeling really dark urges around this bard. Hopefully that's nothing. And then wake up and Alfira's gone and the whole camp's looking at Cardinal like, why did you do that? And only then is when Cardinal opens up and is like, hey, by the way, guys, I have issues, but I don't really know how to talk about them because I'm an amnesiac. Cerulean doesn't love seeing another bard gone and is kind of off-put by Cardinal by it because I can't tell how intentional it was that they killed a bard and if they're next. Obviously that's something Cerulean gets over, but it's kind of a worry for them for a little bit. But nonetheless, the two of them, Cardinal and Cerulean, do have to work together over leadership since Cardinal does take over battling. Any battle plans and battle strategies are made by Cardinal, and they do a really good and efficient job of figuring out everyone's magic and swordsmanship and bows and everything, and being able to command them very efficiently throughout the battle. Over time, I think Cerulean's insistent prying to get Cardinal to open up and be friends with people would get Cardinal to actually become friendly with the camp. And then getting into it, Cardinal, very anti-Emperor. They can sense something is really off with that guy, and also vaguely remembers the Emperor or Mind Flayers in general. Because Cardinal was part of the Dead Three when the Emperor is kidnapped, so I would imagine they would know him. And I'd imagine the Emperor knows who Cardinal is, and is like, yeah, the moment they get their memories back, they're not gonna like me. I'm not even going to try to be persuading Cardinal to be on my side. And I think that's why the Emperor goes so heavy in putting all of his eggs in Cerulean's basket of this one. This one's the one I'm going to manipulate the most. Cardinal's character arc does go in a very opposite direction that Cerulean's does. Cardinal goes from being this very silent and untrusting person because he will not open up, to being a very nice and considerate teammate and really enjoying the camp and everyone in it. Meanwhile, Cerulean is in the corner eating euthids, and I think Cardinal would try really, really hard to get Cerulean back on track. I think Cardinal cared very deeply for Orin as a sister, and while they don't remember Orin until the later acts of the game, I think Cardinal feels some sort of older sibling emotions with Cerulean, and wants to protect them, and wants to not have them be an illithid. Speaking of siblings, I think Cardinal would be super against killing Orin. It's something he has to do, but I think he'd want to attempt to fix her. Cardinal does end up ending her, and then Bald does the whole, "You're my chosen," and Cardinal goes, "No!" And then all of the life from Cardinal, and Cardinal's out. And very quickly gets brought in. I think it's a little funny how quickly the Dark Urge goes from being dead to being back up. Also, Cardinal is very much on the side of the Orphic Hammer to release Orpheus from how much they don't like the Emperor. He will take literally anyone but the Emperor. In the end, I think Cardinal is one of the people who really convinces Cerulean that the Emperor cannot be trusted, and they need to stop hanging around him, and eventually would strong-arm Cerulean into stopping the whole thing. And then cue the happy ending, everyone wins. But yeah, that's the basic premise of Cardinal's story. Now, the Hanged Man upright means to sacrifice a bit of yourself in order to see a new perspective and in order to no longer feel stuck. This comes into play with Cardinal being the Dark Urge. He doesn't want to be Bald's Chosen, and he doesn't want these dark urges. So, in order to become a new person in everything, he has to leave his old habits away. He has to stop holding on to those things. Reversing the card means being at a standstill, being really indecisive about how to act, and delaying the progress of becoming new. And that is Cardinal at the very beginning of his story, being standoffish to people and not letting the companions get close to him in order for him to kind of fix himself. His tarot card is much more about personality than it is about his overall story, but I still think it really fits him. Art-wise, I went with a similar color palette I did for Ceruleans, just because I wanted them to feel like they were a set of drawings, and I thought keeping the same color palette would kind of give that effect. And I imagined that this drawing takes place when Cardinal rejects Bald, and Bald takes the life from the Dark Urge, and they're laying on the floor, gone. The hands at the top of the tarot card are being like the past victims of Cardinal, and they're clawing at Cardinal for all the old decisions he had made and trying to get him to continue on. Stand still, not continue. But the chains are Cardinal kind of being free from the Dark Urge, no longer being tied down to that. The clothing for Cardinal, I really couldn't think of a different outfit to put them in, so I did give them just the basic sorcerer clothing that you get, especially since I associate that sorcerer clothing so much with the Dark Urge that I also thought by keeping the sorcerer clothing on Cardinal, it was much easier to peg them as the Dark Urge of this story. Then for the top border of the card, I did the final Netherstone, and in the other end of the card, I did the skull for Bald's symbol. Now, I didn't add the little blood swirl around that one because I had incorporated the blood swirl as part of Cardinal's background, so I didn't want to have it repeating. So I'm not sure how set I am on the skull. I think it works, but I was really iffy when I put that in.
Still in control. Just.
And there's Cardinal's Hanged Man card. This one was a lot easier for me. Cardinal's card came out pretty much how I had thought it would come out. Let me know which one you guys like more. Me and my friends all have different ones that we liked more, so let me know your thoughts on them. Finally, that is the end of the 2 tarot card drawings for my Baldurs Gate OCs. This project took a lot longer than usual, so I really hope you guys like these characters and their little stories. I hope I explained their stories well enough for you guys to be a little attached to them. That'd be awesome. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you like and subscribe the video. Please and thank you. That'd be amazing. Bye!